Today on Hands On Photography, I have another bit of feedback that's quite common that pops into my inbox pretty regularly. And it's regarding the world of Adobe and Photoshop and its products and so forth. And, someone wants to know, what are your alternatives to Photoshop? Well, I got a couple things in mind. Some things you're going to like, some things you're probably not going to like. Stay tuned. Let's talk about it.
This is TWiT.
No ads, just the content. That's what you get when you join Club TWiT. You even get extras like TWiT Plus, our new bonus feed just for members, and exclusive access to the Club TWiT Discord community. Join now for just $7 a month and support TWiT as we continue to create top-notch podcasts you expect and deserve. We're just getting started, so be one of the first to join as we build Club TWiT from the ground up. You could be an early member. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit to learn more and sign up now. Thanks.
Well, hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Pruitt, and this is Hands On Photography here on TWiT TV. Hope y'all are doing well. I am unbelievable as always. Folks, this is the show where I like to sit down and share with you different tips that's going to help make you a better photographer and a better post processor. So if that's the content that you are interested in and trying to learn photography, go ahead and subscribe now. That's what you need to do. So go on over to twit.tv/hop. That's our website. That's twit.tv/HOP for Hands On Photography. And you'll see all of our subscription options over there, available on those big old podcast platforms that you all know and love: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, even YouTube. So subscribe there as well, and leave me a comment, leave me a rating, and all that good feedback. And also make sure you get the show each and every Thursday when these shows drop. Every Thursday, roughly 3 p.m. Pacific, somewhere, give or take. But if you got it in your podcast catcher, you get it automatically anyway. So anyway, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with this week's episode. So as I previously mentioned, I am still playing catch up on emails, and I want to do more listener feedback because I've been a bit busy doing some tutorials and doing some guest interviews, which I'm still going to keep doing. But I want to give back and share some of the feedback with you, the Hands On Photography listener that has been sending in all of this interesting stuff, whether it's photographs and messages of encouragement. And I really do appreciate that. And then from time to time, I just get some general questions like this one here. So let's go ahead and pull up this email. So this email says, "Dear Mr. Pruitt, thank you for your hard work on your show." Oh, thank you. It's informative and entertaining, and I greatly appreciate it. I'm hoping that you can perhaps do a show about alternatives to using Adobe products, specifically Photoshop. I would imagine that you get this question often, and I know the correct answer is always, it depends what you want to do with it. Or want it to do. Good point. Over the course of many years, I've used Photoshop as my primary tool for image editing. I have finally gotten fed up with Adobe's incessant refusal to allow users to do even the simplest feature configuration, Adobe Cloud, Adobe Reader's inability to leave other programs like Office alone, etc., and their constant installations of services that I do not want running. So I turned off the subscription, and I'm now looking for an alternative. I've tried GIMP over the years, but it is not my favorite. It's not a favorite of mine. There's just something about it that doesn't feel polished, or maybe completed is the right word. Right now, I'm using Affinity Photo, and it seems okay, but it is different. I know I will have to get used to how a new program works, so I thought I would ask for any suggestions that you might have. And it continues. I'm basically looking for what Photoshop was 10 plus years ago, an industrial strength image editor with extensibility through plugins. One last thing, I primarily use Windows. Even if the walled garden of the Mac is sometimes, air quotes, better, it's just not something that interests me. I use Android devices, but not for anything beyond snapshots. Any advice would be most welcomed and appreciated, even if it's simply that the thing I'm looking for doesn't exist. My best to Queen Pruitt and the Hardheads, and of course to you, sir. Thank you. Signed, Mr. Don Swafford. Wow. Whew, that is quite a bit to unpack there. And Mr. Swafford, first off, thank you for the message and thank you for those kind words. But yeah, this is quite a bit to unpack. A lot of people over these last almost 2 years now of doing the show have reached out to me regarding using Adobe products and using the subscription service and paid apps, so on and so forth. And I get it. I understand why people are concerned about the way some of these software developers are digging into the pockets of the consumers. Way back in the days, and I've continued to do this, I try to watch and see what people are asking questions about and what people are using. And quite consistently, folks that are listening and enjoying the show, they are using the Adobe products and they're curious about the Adobe products. So most of the time I will continue to do what I do inside of these Adobe products. That's also what I use. But with the caveat of, I try to make sure everything that's presented in the show is on a fundamental level kind of thing. So it could be applied to pretty much any image editor that you're using. There are going to be some exceptions. You know, there's some things that you can do in Photoshop that you can't do in Lightroom. There's some things that you can do in Photoshop that you can't do in Snapseed or Darktable or things like that. So there are going to be some exceptions, but most of the time I try to keep it very generalized because it just works better that way. But anyway, back to you. You were mentioning you've used GIMP and you are currently using Affinity Photo. Okay, so let's talk about GIMP. GIMP, G-I-M-P, for the folks that are not regular TWiT listeners, that is the GNU Image Manipulation Program, is what GIMP stands for. And it is a free open source photo editor that is very, 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 very similar to Photoshop. Seriously, it's very similar to Photoshop. The only difference is, at least in my experience, is it is a bit clunky. Sometimes the keyboard shortcuts are not quite what I'm used to, but they do have some plugins and extensions that you can install to make it more Photoshop-like. But man, that's just not my cup of tea, even at the price of good old free. I'd much rather just pay for the Photoshop product that I have and get pretty good performance out of it. But that is an option and it is free. So I get it if people want to try it out, but just understand that some of the functionality is going to be a little bit clunky, but you will still be able to do most things that Photoshop can do inside of GIMP. All right, so GIMP's out of the way. Next up, you mentioned Affinity Photo. So I use Affinity Photo from time to time. I actually don't have it installed on my current system right now, but I did have it on here. I uninstalled it some time back because I've been spending more time in the Adobe space. But Affinity Photo is quite nice. Let me see if I can pull up my screen here and show you just a couple screenshots of it. It is a pretty daggum robust app, and it looks just like Photoshop in many ways, and it functions like Photoshop in many ways. And keyboard shortcuts and things like that are pretty much mirrored inside of Affinity Photo, which is by Serif. And it comes with a different pricing model, i.e. no subscriptions, as you see here. You can get it for $50 on Windows and Mac, but you can also get it on an iPad for $19.99. And again, none of this has a subscription to it. I've used it on Windows. I've used it on iPad. And on the iPad is where I think this app really, really shines, because there are times where I wish I had Photoshop capabilities on iPad when I'm working on some different photos or projects or what have you. And Photoshop iPad, it's still not quite there. It's just not quite there yet. Affinity, on the other hand, on iPad, is closer to Photoshop on iPad than Photoshop on iPad is. Does that make sense? But yeah, and for $20, it's totally worth it. And I enjoy playing around with that one from time to time. But this thing is quite nice. Again, you get it for $50 for a one-time fee. Yeah, $50 for a one-time fee on a laptop or a desktop computer. Or you can get it on your iPad and still have all of the functionality that you're used to having in the likes of Photoshop, where there's creating photo merges of HDR and focus stacking, like what we talked about with Mr. Don Komarechka doing macro photography. I mean, it's a perfect I shouldn't say this, but it really does remind me of Photoshop in many ways. Let me see if I can find the screenshots. They had some screenshots here. There we go. But if you look at it, you have a layer stack and the menus, and it's ridiculously close to Photoshop as we scroll through here, giving you a lot of the functionality. There are some terms inside of Affinity Photo that you would have to get used to. Again, that's just new apps because they have these little buttons up here in the upper left. I believe they call them personas, and they have different functionality based on the persona that you've clicked in, air quotes persona. So that's something that you just have to sort of fight through to learn, because it is a new app and it's a somewhat different interface, even though it's really, really close to Photoshop. But to Serif's credit, Serif is the company that created this. They have a really, really good YouTube channel. I will link to it in our show notes that has a lot of tutorials to help you get started with just the basics of using this application. And there are other applications out there, and they can also get you squared away with some of the advanced stuff. It is a really, really, really nice app. And again, it's got a very nice price. So I would, if I were you, I would continue to stick with Affinity, because it's going to give you a lot of what you're used to having inside of Photoshop from your decade plus of usage. Now, okay, so what about people that are not quite ready to invest $50 into an application, but GIMP is just, it was just a pain for them trying to fight through it. You do have one other option, and it's totally free. And again, with free, you're going to have some caveats, but I've tried out this particular service and app in the past, and it's called Photopea. That's Photopea, as in like the little vegetable that grows, photopea.com. This is something that you run in a browser, and depending on the type of image that you're working with and depending on the capabilities of your computer, this works pretty doggone good. So let's switch over to my screen here, and I'm going to take you to the Photopea website. So we'll go from my blog to photopea.com. And it loads up. And again, this is looking a lot like Photoshop, right? So I'll click on this file menu here in the upper left, and I'll say open an image. And I'll pick this image here. It's going to load up pretty quickly, right? Not too bad. Now, this is a JPEG, but you do have the capability to open RAW files as well. I've opened Canon RAW. I've opened Sony RAW. I haven't tested any Olympus or Nikon RAW files or anything like that, just Sony and Canon RAW files. And this pops right open. And again, you have this layer stack over here, just like you would inside of Photoshop. You have all of these menu options over on the left side. Again, it looks just like Photoshop, and even down to the keyboard shortcuts. If I want to just brush a red line on the screen, instead of just clicking the brush icon over here on the left, I can just hit B on my keyboard. And if I want to make it bigger, I can do just like I would in Photoshop, hold down the Alt key and hold down right click on my mouse and drag and make it bigger and change the feathering and softness of it and hardness of it and opacity. Yeah, it's everything just like Photoshop. And then I'll just paint my red line right there as if I were in Photoshop. So it's quite nice, gives you a lot of the same functionality, and it's free. But if you look at this user interface over on the right-hand side, there's a lot of empty space here on the right-hand side. That's because that side is going to be filled in with ads. So you're not paying for it. You're going to have some ads in this app. But if you don't want to have ads, they do offer a premium upgrade. So if you click on the accounts tab here at the top, you'll see the list of the options that comes with the free package versus the premium package. And essentially you just get more history for when you're going through making different adjustments and whatnot. You can go back and undo based on the amount of history there. But you also go ad free with this. And for all, it's a nice price. So for a year, instead of it being $50 a year, you get it for $40 a year. And that's with the premium account. But if you don't want to do that, you can continue to use the free version. Just know that you'll get some ads over here on the right-hand side. And note that you will not be able to have all of the extended history that you would get in the premium version. But yeah, that's Photop. That's photop.com. I'll put a link in the show notes for that, just in case you're interested as well. But yeah, sir, you have options, but I think you're on the right path. If it were me, I swap between using my Creative Cloud suite of applications and Capture One. Because I like Capture One and it works really well for tethering. Even though Lightroom Classic has gotten so much better for tethering, now I hardly go back to Capture One, but I still use it from time to time. You do have some other apps out there such as Luminar, but again, it depends on what you're looking for. I don't consider Luminar a Photoshop option, Photoshop alternative. I'd rather take a look at Affinity, Serif's Affinity Photo. I think you're on the right path. All right. Okay. Thank you for that message. And folks, thank you all for your continued support. This has been a lot of fun to go through all of these emails that are coming in, because some of them are quite funny and thought provoking, and they all are quite encouraging. So I really do appreciate that. If you'd like for me to take a look at some images or have some feedback, or just have some questions about some photography gear, photography software, or techniques and so forth, shoot me an email. hop@twit.tv. Again, good old email works just fine for me. It's hop@twit.tv. And if email's not your jam, feel free to give me a follow over on social media. I'm available on Twitter at @ant_Pruitt. I'm also available on Instagram at @ant_Pruitt. I continue to post on those platforms. And I know we just talked about Instagram. I'm still going to keep using it because I can. And it's just working for me. So feel free to tag me on any of the social media platforms, and more than happy to answer you. And I look forward to hearing from you. All right. So until next time, you all continue to get on out there and safely create and dominate. And thank you to my man, Mr. Victor, for making me look and sound good. And we will see you all next time. Y'all take care.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that podcast episode. If you would like to check out more about tech news, then you should check out Tech News Weekly with me, Micah Sargent, my co-host Jason Howell, where we interview the people making and breaking the tech news every week.